Welcome to 2026, and as you can expect, there are 3 new rental laws now in effect that every California landlord needs to understand, because failing to follow any of them could cost you your case, even if the eviction itself is otherwise valid. 2 of these are statewide, and 1 applies specifically to Los Angeles under the Rental Stabilization Ordinance, and none of them are optional. Now, I've done videos in the past on rent control and tenant protections, and those have been some of the most watched videos on this channel. That tells me there's some confusion and a lot of risk around compliance. So today, I'm going to walk you through these updates clearly, without commentary, so you understand what's required and where landlords are getting tripped up. The first change went into effect January 1st, and it applies statewide. Landlords are now required to provide both a stove and a refrigerator in every rental unit. Cooktops? Microwaves? Well, they're not acceptable substitutes for a stove, and while the refrigerators used to be optional and often maintained by the tenant, that's no longer the case. The refrigerator must now be provided and maintained by the landlord. This is no longer a gray area. And this matters because habit and assumption are where landlords tend to get in trouble. What was once acceptable last year may now be grounds for a habitability claim. And habitability issues can undermine enforcement actions later. The second update is also statewide, and this one is procedural, which makes it especially dangerous. When serving legal notices, such as notice to pay or quit, notice of default, landlords are now required to do 2 things. First, you must post a notice of right to counsel in a conspicuous place on the property. And second, that same notice must be attached to the legal documents being served. Failure to do either one can result in legal action being dismissed, even if the eviction itself would otherwise be valid. This is where landlords can lose on a technicality. The third update applies specifically to properties subject to the Los Angeles Rental Stabilization Ordinance. Landlords are now required to pay tenants interest on the security deposit once per year. This can be done either as a rent credit or as a direct payment. The required interest rate changes annually. To put this in context, in 2023, the rate was 0.04%. 2024, it increased to 0.52%. And in 2025, it jumped to 4.32%. That's a meaningful increase, especially in an environment where traditional savings accounts haven't offered similar returns. For many small mom and pop landlords, this is another example of how compliance has become more complex and less predictable. That's it. No rant. Whether you agree with these laws or not isn't really the issue. The issue is understanding them, because the penalties of getting them wrong are real. Most landlords don't lose cases because they intended to do something wrong. They lose them because they miss a procedural requirement. So if you own rental property in California, especially here in Los Angeles, staying current on these changes just isn't optional. And for many owners, these updates are becoming part of a larger conversation about a long-term strategy. Clarity matters, especially when the rules of the game keep changing. So I implore you to stay informed. And until our next video, I'll see you around the neighborhood.